Okay, so welcome to this presentation on navigating ethical dilemmas in the high school classroom. I'm going to be looking at Amir's dilemma and putting myself in his position. So he's a high school teacher who runs a gaming channel, and some of his students have started to participate on the stream, and parents are beginning to be concerned about the formation of parasocial relationships and bad influences on their children. So this raises a number of core moral dilemmas. One of them is about managing tensions between individual, private freedom and professional expectations. And the other is maintaining good student relationships within professional boundaries. And these things can pull apart from each other, and that's why it's a moral dilemma. So on that first point, generally speaking, people in a liberal society should be able to do what they want to do in their private lives, so long as they don't impact on the ability of other people to do so. However, there are exceptions to this, such as when a person is in a role where we have certain higher expectations from them, even in their personal capacity. So professional codes like the Victorian Institute of Teaching's Code of Conduct, they themselves embody the sense of collective professionalism that informs an individual's sensibility and experience. And so an individual teacher is not only standing for themselves, but they stand for the profession, and they should also draw upon the profession and its collective wisdom and knowledge in order to shape their individual ethical judgment. And this is reflected in Principle 2.1 of this Code of Conduct, which says exactly that their personal conduct, which means even outside of the schoolroom, has an impact on the professional standing of the teacher and the profession as a whole. However, it notes that there's no definitive boundary between the personal and professional conduct of a teacher. And this is going to be really important as we go forward to determine what exactly does come under this principle. When is it justifiable for the profession to expect an individual to change their private lives due to the nature of their role? And there are also various other laws that embody these sort of community public expectations. This includes employer social media policies where teachers can be dismissed for damage to employers' reputation, professional obligations for student welfare, and state policy, which explicitly relates to social media, which is the case with Amir's gaming channel is also an instance of social media, that says that teachers must not interact with or friend students on social media and must ask students to unfollow their accounts. So I take these to be non-negotiable standards and expectations which Amir should conform to, and so going forward he should ensure that there is strictly no communication with students through the gaming channel, and he should also be cautioning parents and students not to follow him and deny follow requests where they are made. And in order to prevent damage to the employer's reputation, he should also be very wary about the sort of personal information he discloses while on his stream, because that may open him up to vulnerabilities such as people using that personal information against him, and that could in turn impact on the school's reputation, because there could be media scandals and stuff associated with that. Okay, so that illustrates some of the ways in which personal liberty and professional expectations might pull against each other, but we haven't really clarified things too much here because of the blurry boundary. What counts and what doesn't count as legitimate infringements on personal liberty? So here I'm going to invoke theory of justice by John Rawls, but it's in general a liberal kind of theory of justice. So yes, this is our question. What kind of personal conduct can be subject to constraint and why? And I'm going to talk about two dimensions of the case. One is the content of the channel, so what he's saying, what he's displaying on his stream. And there's also the issue of parasocial relationships. And I'm going to say that these must not violate liberal principles of justice. And insofar as they do, then there are legitimate infringements on that personal liberty. So regarding content, we've admitted that there are high standards for teachers in their personal lives. And my claim, in line with Rawls, is that the high standards that we impose on them should not be derived from values outside of what Rawls calls an overlapping consensus, which is basically a pool of common values that all citizens in a pluralistic liberal democracy are able to sign on to. In the case of a stream, it's if content is excessively vulgar, explicit, discriminatory, or otherwise indecent. And we think that this counts as something that would ground a measure of degree of control, because the person is in a unique position of influence and trust, as the VIT puts it, because they have all this influence over young people who are in their care. And also, it is part of an overlapping consensus. We all agree that there are certain basic standards of decency that should be conformed to. And I should also say that in this process of working out what counts as, behavior that can be legitimately controlled, you should consult with parents, colleagues, and school leaders. And this is important for gaining that additional perspective on yourself that you can't necessarily achieve all on your own. And it will also help to uncover those the full nature of parental concerns. Parasocial relationships, I argue, are themselves not the responsibility of the teacher. So a parasocial relationship is just basically when somebody who is viewing a piece of content identifies with or idolizes or feels some sort of bond with the person producing the content, even if there is no reciprocation. So the teacher's responsibility is, however, to not promote or go beyond parasocial relationships. And this is a consequence of abiding by those policies I mentioned earlier of not communicating. So regarding the dilemma between maintaining good student relationships within professional boundaries, it's pretty clear to all of us that teacher-student relationships are really important pedagogically and ethically. So conversation, affection, closeness, and support are associated with positive school attitude, connectedness in the classroom, and engagement. And there's a wealth of literature on this. And some authors, such as Puzio, even go so far as to say online communication can benefit in a special way, even through social media, because of the way that that's where students spend a lot of time and are very familiar. It's also important to maintain those relationships for self-reflective practice reasons, because you're going to be determining whether things are working or not working, because students have, they feel safe to express their feedback, their honest opinions about how they're feeling and what they need in the classroom. And as Noddings points out, as an application of the ethics of care that Toronto articulates, attentiveness is a crucial part of being an ethical teacher. So we've got to listen to the express needs of students and not just imagine what their needs are. So that those are so-called assumed needs. And there's this delicate balance of the two, because we can't always simply just ignore what the curriculum requires us to do. For example, if students express a need not to do mathematics, is one of his examples, but is really important for many reasons to be attentive and to put aside your prejudices and assumptions. So relationships are important, but it's very important not to be a friend. So this is because there is an inequality between the teacher and the students. So this caring relationship has to take account of that fact. Friendship is not appropriate in those circumstances of inequality. And this is because classroom management issues can arise when they don't take you as seriously, or your power to influence the students educationally, academically, ethically, in terms of their character development, is diminished because they don't see you as an authority, they see you as a peer. There's also the danger of partiality and favoritism, as the VIT warns, when you've got a group of students that feel like they have some sort of special relationship to you because of their shared gaming interest. And there's the possibility of inappropriate contact or grooming, which can occur in these social media spaces that are not under the eye of other staff members or outside of the school context. And there's also the danger of being accused of inappropriate contact and grooming if you're going outside of those contexts to pursue certain more personal relations with students. So for all these reasons, being a friend is not what is required, desirable, or permitted in this particular kind of caring relationship. So in summary, my compromise is going to be for Amir to keep the gaming channel open. I think liberal principles of justice permit that. It's an important part of his pursuit of the good. And yet that should be subject to certain boundaries, including non-communication, non-disclosure of personal information, and so on, as I've discussed. Along with that, however, you want to limit the damage that this could potentially do because of the various trade-offs that you've engaged in. So you want to find a mode of response that will keep the door of communication open, literally and figuratively, even though you might deny certain interests and requests from teachers, from students, from parents, and so on. So maintaining this conversation is crucial to maintaining the care relation in the case of students. So they feel heard, even though heard and understood their full perspective on the matter of gaming and what they wanted out of that particular relationship, even if you can't give them everything they want. Likewise, with parents in particular, you want to maintain that conversation, make sure that they feel heard and acknowledged so that you can maintain the ecology of care which supports students, which is, after all, the center of what you should be concerned about as a teacher, the welfare and development of those students. And so that summarizes my response to this particular ethical dilemma. I hope it's been helpful, and thanks for listening.